Welcome to the Asbestos Knowledge Empire.
What does asbestos management mean to you?
I used to really struggle with the asbestos management at my site, but now it's a breeze.
It used to be really expensive. I was paying loads, but now I've got my asbestos power team in place. It's so much easier.
Asbestos can be a pain in the arse if not handled right.
We had to stop the job because asbestos was discovered. Now we don't have that problem.
Asbestos management is easier than you think. Asbestos management. Be proactive, not reactive. Think about asbestos first, not last.
And now your hosts, best-selling authors and asbestos experts, Ian Stone and Neil Munro.
Now, steps with Michelle Visage and heartbreak in this city. Now, it's mostly thought of as a bit of an old problem, but that won't affect us in our day-to-day life. But one Northampton company are trying to raise awareness of the dangers of asbestos. Acorn Analytical Services are supporting Asbestos Awareness Week with their own campaign. Let's talk to company director Neil Munro. Hi, Neil.
Hi, Helen.
And it kind of is thought of something from the past, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Lots of people kind of think asbestos is an issue, something of the past, but it really isn't. And that's kind of what we're trying to achieve this week as part of Global Asbestos Awareness Week, and kind of increase the awareness about asbestos and how to prevent exposure. And like you said, it isn't a thing in the past. It is still a present and current problem that lots of people are facing and not aware of.
So where are you likely to come across it? Because I can remember when my school was shut down for a week or so while some asbestos was removed, but that was back in the 1980s. So that was a long time ago. Where are you likely to come across stuff now?
Well, asbestos, to paint a bit of a picture, UK was at one point the world's largest manufacturer of asbestos products. This country loved the stuff, and we built a lot of our buildings with it. Post sort of World War II, we used it to construct buildings, but not just in buildings, but items within the buildings as well. Mm-hmm. And we kind of imported roughly around 5 to 6 million tonnes of raw asbestos fibre, which was used in millions of tonnes of different materials and different products. It's kind of estimated that there's about 5,000 different products which have been created to contain asbestos. So, we really did use it everywhere. And it was used right up until it was finally prohibited in this country, which is 1999. So if you think of how many buildings have been sort of built from around the 1950s to 1999, there was significant numbers. And unfortunately, there's still a lot of asbestos present within these buildings. And raising awareness today is kind of, there is knowledge in the construction industry and people who may sort of physically come into contact with asbestos, but really it's the everyday people that we're trying to bring into this picture, where they're in buildings and they may come into contact with asbestos.
How do you know, though?
Whether you've got asbestos? Yeah, so there are regulations in place to manage asbestos. All the asbestos regulations in place are sort of geared towards preventing people being exposed to asbestos. So they're kind of the first step in managing that process is kind of identifying whether you've got asbestos in your building. How can you safely manage that if you don't know if you've got any or where it is and what condition it's in? So usually people will have an asbestos survey which will kind of inspect the building and collect samples of any suspect materials. They're then sent for analysis at a laboratory that we've got one based here in Northampton. And the results come from that and kind of the recommendations we can provide to sort of advise that duty holder of what they need to do with it.
Is it always a case of having to have it removed, or are there other things that can be done?
No, the recommendations sort of set by the Health and Safety Executive kind of recommend that if you can prevent people being exposed to asbestos and manage it in situ, then that's kind of the best thing to do. So it's not necessarily you have to, if you have identified asbestos, that you have to get it removed. The most important thing, and this is what all the regulations point towards, is preventing people being exposed to it. So it's preventing people sort of damaging the materials, come into contact with it, and sort of managing the building correctly to make sure that these materials are kept in a safe condition.
If you do get exposed to asbestos at any point, does it mean that you're going to become poorly in the future, or is it kind of a luck of the draw thing almost?
There's lots of different cases, similar to kind of smoking, I suppose, where you've got stories of people who have never smoked and kind of been exposed to secondary smoke and ended up with some sort of lung cancer. And the same with, the stories of people smoking all their life and never dying from a cancer. Asbestos is similar. There's cases where people have been exposed to very small amounts of asbestos and ended up with an asbestos-related lung cancer. And that's even from, washing people's clothes, which had asbestos fibre on them. So, there isn't really any known safe level of exposure. The only thing that we do know is the more you are exposed to asbestos fibre, the more likely you are to contract an asbestos-related disease.
I've just had a text from Maria, which I'll read to you, Neil, if that's okay. She says, when I had a leak in my old house, they tested the Artex and it contained asbestos. Had to remove the whole ceiling, taken down by a specialist before repair. There will be a lot of people listening who've got Artex ceilings and now worried.
Yeah, so it's not just asbestos is present, not just in commercial or industrial buildings, but, it's in our homes as well. Lots of domestic properties were built using asbestos. And you're quite right. Artex or textured decorative coatings did contain asbestos. Not all of them do. There is a non-asbestos equivalent, which looks exactly the same. You'd only kind of identify whether it did contain asbestos by having it tested. It's a very low asbestos content in this material. It's kind of around the 2 to 5% asbestos content, so it is quite low. The material is actually, it bonds the asbestos fibre within it itself. So from a risk point of view, as long as it's remained undisturbed and it's in a good condition, it's not peeling, flaking, then it shouldn't release any asbestos fibre and it should be quite safe. And it's only when we come to disturb it and we release the fibre that causes a hazard.
So it's Asbestos Awareness Week. Why have you decided to get involved this year?
Well, it's kind of something that we support every year, but we've had a big sort of push this year just to kind of raise the awareness, and it's really focused on normal everyday people who are going to work, going to school, going to church, to kind of raise the awareness in every day, because it's only when we get the kind of everyday people to kind of raise this bar of awareness that I think we're going to get some movement, because this is still a current issue that people are, like you said at the beginning, associate with a thing of the past, but it really isn't. And that's kind of the whole point where we want to kind of focus this week.
How can people find out more, Neil?
Find out more, you can follow us on our website, which is acorn-as.com, or on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and it's Acorn AS for the handle.
Great stuff. Thank you very much indeed for your time, Neil Munro, who's Company Director of Acorn Analytical Services.